Well, here a bitter row is going on within the coalition over calls for an arms embargo against Israel. And this isn't just the standard spat between Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives. Channel 4 News has learned that the Foreign Secretary, Philip Hammond, has sat on a proposal for the suspension of arms export licences proposed by a fellow Tory minister for the last 2 weeks, to the increasing exasperation of many in government. I've been finding out just what's been going on. As the death and destruction in Gaza escalated, so too did the rhetoric deploring it. But the British government has been urged not only to talk tougher, but act too. Quitting as a Foreign Office Minister this week, Saeed Avasi called for a ban on arms sales to Israel.
It seems odd that we have a policy at the moment where on the one hand we allow arms to be supplied and on the other hand we're spending taxpayers' money on patching up the people who may have been injured from the use of those arms.
She's by no means alone in putting pressure on the Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond, who moved over from the Ministry of Defence only last month. I understand the Middle East Minister, Tobias Ellwood, submitted a report to the Foreign Secretary a full 2 weeks ago, calling for a range of arms export licences to be suspended. But despite mounting casualties, no action was taken. Instead, Philip Hammond infuriated his Liberal Democrat cabinet colleagues and some of his own Conservative ministers by belatedly proposing only a limited embargo.
We clearly now have a truce, and I think it's very important that we should say loud and clear to the Israeli government, look, if that truce ends, if that ceasefire ends, if military conflict happens again, we will immediately suspend those licences. I hope we will be able to say that shortly. It's candidly, you know, if I was Prime Minister, I'd like to be Prime Minister. I'm not, but if I was, then we would have made those decisions earlier.
After one Foreign Office Minister quit and Conservatives claim another threatened to, the department is in some turmoil. An announcement on an arms export ban was scheduled yesterday. The TV cameras were even readied, but it was pulled at the last minute as the Lib Dems and Tories continued to wrangle. Earlier this year, UK arms companies held licences to export nearly £8 billion of defence equipment to Israel. But much of that is for civilian use. Campaigners estimate licences for military equipment amount to £10 to £15 million a year. But on top of that, 47 open licences have been granted to British defence manufacturers, allowing unlimited export of military equipment to Israel, including artillery ammunition, targeting equipment and components for military aircraft. So why is the Foreign Secretary so reluctant to act?
Remember that Philip Hammond has only recently taken up office as Foreign Secretary, so it's inevitable that the direction of policy will be being laid down by Number 10 Downing Street. And Number 10 in turn may find itself under some pressure from the United States, because the power of the pro-Israeli lobby in American politics is very considerable.
There were protests in Gaza today, with the ceasefire due to expire tomorrow morning. A point being forcefully made by Lib Dems within government. But they've only just found their voice on the conflict. At a recent national security meeting, the only Lib Dem cabinet minister present made no contribution on the subject.